an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Gravity Falls, Season 2, Episodes 1 and 2, Scarioki, and Into the Bunker. In these episodes, Dipper, you can't just go a day or two without bringing some sort of monster to the shack. Buddy, get yourself under control. Also, I think shape-shifting monsters are the scariest of all. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Melanie, who is in the chat right now, for commissioning these episodes. I mentioned before I started that it was thundering here, and she said spooky sounds for a spooky pair of episodes. Indeed. I hope that the mic picks that up a little bit. So I love, first of all, when I live watched these on the Facebook page, which you can go and watch at facebook.com/unspoiledpod, sorry. But when I first watched them, the title of episode 1 did not make any sense. I was like, Scarioke? Scare, what? And now, now knowing that there's like karaoke in the episode, I'm like, oh, okay. But at first I was just like, what am I supposed to be thinking is happening here? These two episodes were super fun. I was really happy because I got to rewatch both of these episodes with Owen just last night. I would like to register my frustration. Those of us who have Disney Plus know what I'm talking about. They don't have a rewatch button that you can just start an episode. So if when we started to play the first one, it was already on the end, the scene after the end credits, and it started playing that, which bums me out because there are some really good jokes in those and they kind of give it away. And also, I did watch those scenes, so I don't know why it starts playing from there when I played through that on the first watch. But anyway, just in case a Disney executive is watching this, which I'm sure they are, along with millions of other listeners. So this episode starts off with the rumbling and light coming from the weird underground laboratory / I don't even know what to call it. Laboratory, computer lab. I mean, lab is, I guess, the best thing. From Grunkle Stan getting his, weird things started. We still don't know what this is. The light is, extremely bright and seems to, alert some people nearby that it's happening. Because, we see it fall on Gideon's face, for example, in prison. And one of his eyes opens. But there's lightning coming out of it to the point that it lights his arm hair on fire. It's doing something, but we don't know what it's doing. And he had set it to auto scan, but I don't know what it's scanning for. There's code going over his face, and I'm really interested to know whether that code means anything. There's ones and zeros being printed out on a paper. And, again, I want to know if there are people who can read code looking at this being like, oh, yeah, I know what this is. He pulls on a glove to pull down the switch when he had already, done the first thing. I thought that was it. But he pulls down another switch, and the glove has 6 fingers on it. He does not have 6 fingers. One of those fingers is just dangling free. But clearly Stan, inherited this lab, and I don't mean that in the, I don't mean he was necessarily related to the original author, but this was used by the original author. And there is no indication to me of what the switch just did. All we know is that there are some dudes who are scanning the area, and it's not just like scanning the area actually, because when the map first pops up for them, it's of the entire planet. So it seems like there's like maybe satellite coverage that's looking for like weird anomalies like this. And I am extremely excited that one of the voices of these two FBI agents is Nick Offerman, who is just great. I don't know if he's going to be coming back again. Like, you know, I think he must, but I just don't know when that's going to happen. But I'm extremely excited for it whenever it occurs. So, guys, Melanie's over here in the chat. I wonder what the glove means, little emojis. You smug douche. I hate you. How dare you rub it in my face that you know a thing. So this, we like, I was really surprised. This just sort of ends with the FBI being like, oh, time to go over there. But apparently pulling that switch didn't actually like do anything that anybody notices overnight. You know, I thought that this was going to be like, I don't know, opening some giant trap door somewhere or activating a sequence that was going to like raise a bunch of fences around the town to protect it from the attack of such. I have genuinely no idea what this thing does. But I thought it would be something that was like material that we could tell had happened. Even if it was something that other characters couldn't tell had happened, I figured because we were on the inside and had seen him flip this, that we would know. It does not appear to be the case. I mean, I could be wrong about that, and there could be something that has happened that I'm not aware of. But as of right now, it looks like we wake up in the morning and everything seems pretty much normal. So I don't know what's going on here. So Grunkle Stan is having like a little press conference about the fact that he got the Mystery Shack back. There is an amazing joke with the little dude who wants to be a journalist so bad, who's like, he says, smile for the camera. I didn't even realize this. Grunkle Stan says, your camera's a cinder block. And he says, I just want to feel like part of things. That dude might be like one of my favorite characters on this show. I still think about when the episode where Mabel is doing like the cat cartoons. What does she call them? Shit, I can't remember. But he's like stroking his weird cat whiskers that doctors can't explain, and she just says, you're always weirder than I remember. And like that pretty much sums up who he is. Caricatures. Thank you, Melanie. That is from one of the shorts, for those of you who was like, what are you talking about? I'm pretty sure that was a short. The switch power from it did alert the agents, and they did recognize it / guess where it was from. Right. And like, it occurred to me that maybe he's trying to draw the agents over there, but also I was like, he seemed really upset at their arrival and like he was trying to push them away. So I don't know, like, if that was his goal, was to get them there. He's playing a much more intricate game than I even thought, you know? So anyway, they're announcing to everybody that there's going to be a party that night, and when they split up to get ready for the party to celebrate that they're back in the shack, Dipper comes up to Grunkle Stan and tells him, hey, you know, I was meaning to ask you if I could get my journal back. And you think that Grunkle Stan's going to kind of like argue about it a little bit or do something that's like, you know, put him off. But instead, he immediately, like, he weirdly pulls it out from under a piece of furniture and is just like, oh, it was so boring, I couldn't even finish it, and gives it back. And we see him, photocopying it the night before. So I want to point out, later on, we find out that there's invisible ink all over these pages. So he did that in an attempt to circumvent having to keep the journal, but it looks like that's not going to be effective. It looks like he's going to have to get that journal back after all. And I would love to know if there is a way to photocopy invisible ink that only shows up in a blacklight. Is there a blacklight effect via Xerox? Like, because the Xerox light doesn't not resemble blacklight. I could see that sort of showing up, but I don't know if it will or not. Oh my God, I forgot about that. Mabel has decided that the whole family is going to get together and sing what do you call it when it's a duet but with three people? A triet? But she wants them all to sing a karaoke song together, and she named them Love Patrol Alpha. And underneath each of because she drew Dipper, Grunkle Stan, and herself, underneath Dipper it says Mr. Paranoid. Underneath Grunkle Stan it says The Old One. And underneath her it says The Heartbreaker, which I just never change, Mabel, ever, please, ever in the world, ever. So we go to the bedroom where Dipper has all of his like conspiracy theories up on the wall that he's trying to piece out. And he is talking about how frustrated he is at the fact that there are definitely a lot of mysteries happening, but he just doesn't seem to be able to figure out how they fit together. And as he's saying, like, you know, he says something like there has to be something in the book. When they open it, it's got a bunch of blank pages. And at this point, of course, they don't know how to read them. I noticed that, like, monocle hanging off the bottom of the book. And I thought it was surely going to be that something was written in there that you could only see through that monocle, that there was something like about it, you know how like, I don't know how many of you guys remember this, but there was a game, there were a lot of board games, back in the 90s where there were these little cards that had like a speckled sort of red, surface that looked like just a random pattern of dots. And then there would be a slot that you would slide those cards into with a piece of like red, clear plastic. And you would slide the card into that slot, and all of a sudden, all of the red speckles would sort of disappear to reveal something was written there after all. And this was, you know, it was a really simple trick that as a little kid, you just found amazing. That was kind of what I thought was going to happen, was it was going to be something like that like there would be secret messages written within the actual ink of other pages. And then once you put that on, the actual ink would sort of fall to the background and a pattern would emerge from within that. Spoilers, that is not how that goes. It is invisible ink. So, we get interrupted by the arrival of the FBI agents, and Grunkle Stan closes the mystery shack and kicks out all of the customers, which Dipper notes is a very unusual thing for him to do. Like, no matter what, he just never closes things. He even like pulls out dollar bills to try and bribe them to go away. I'm pretty sure it was a $5 bill, if I'm not mistaken, which really, like, Grunkle Stan is even cheap when it comes to bribes. So they are Agent Powers, Agent Trigger. We are here to investigate reports of mysterious activity in this town. Activity. Guys, Agent Trigger, just repeating everything that Agent Powers says, is the best possible thing. I don't know why that works for me so well, but I found it fucking hilarious both times I watched it. I just like, I don't know. I don't know what it is. Forgive me if it seems too easy, but there it is. I was actually just talking to a friend of mine about the fact that I am not somebody that it's real easy to make laugh, but this show gets me to laugh out loud fairly frequently. So they come inside to check things out, And Dipper immediately approaches Agent Power and is just like, hey, are you guys investigating like the weird supernatural activity around here? Like there is something going on and I have been looking for these answers as well. And maybe we could team up and talk about what's going on. And he gives Dipper his card and is like, we should talk. And Dipper immediately is like, well, I don't like, why wait for me to call you? Why don't you just come over here and look at this journal that I have? Grunkle Stan interferes immediately and tells them that, oh, this is just Dipper with his overactive kids' imaginations. He is just talking about like the bullshit lore that we put out there in order to sell stuff. And the two FBI agents seem to take this immediately at face value and believe Grunkle Stan. And they leave. They leave with an armful of Grunkle Stan bobbleheads, I should mention, as evidence. So Dipper chases after them, trying to stop them. And Grunkle Stan says something about the last thing that you want at a party is cops. And as he says it, he leans against the vending machine, which we know behind the vending machine is a door to like the basement lab. And as he leans against it, the whole fucking thing shifts backwards like 6 inches. I guess Dipper doesn't notice it or doesn't attribute any importance to that. But I couldn't tell, like, is that meant to signal to us that he hadn't even closed it up properly? Or had somebody else got down there? Like, it was just a weird thing to have happen in that precise moment. But anyway, so yeah, he tells Dipper, I'm confiscating that card. And he puts it in a box labeled contraband and then goes and puts it in a secret hiding spot in his room, which Dipper manages to find really pretty easily enough that I'm like, was he meant to find it? Like, that doesn't feel like Grunkle Stan, but maybe he is just that trusting that the kids aren't going to go into his space. Because honestly, if I were a grown-up, I would assume kids aren't going through my shit simply because it's so boring. You know, I know that as a little kid, I really didn't have a lot of interest in my parents' stuff beyond like, you know, my mom's jewelry or her makeup or something like that. Or, like, you know, what do parents have in their rooms? They have clothes, whoop-de-doo. If you dig far enough, you might find some disturbing, sexual shit that they like use or have, which maybe as a kid, you might not even understand what that's about. But yeah, I just feel like if I were Grunkle Stan, I probably wouldn't work too hard to hide things either, because I'd just take it for granted. Like, they're going to leave it alone. It'll be fine. So they're looking at the journal after the FBI agents have left. Mabel is kind of like, Dipper, look, I understand that this is important to you, but well, can we focus on the party tonight and like having a good time and not do anything fucking crazy, like raise the dead? And as she says that, she opens the journal to a page about zombies, to which she says, I'm not going to raise the dead. I just need these agents to see the book. Well, he does raise the dead. He's so desperate to convince them that the journal matters and is real that when he gets a chance later, he sneaks into Stan's room, finds the card, and calls the agent. And, like, he manages to get the call through just before Grunkle Stan puts his finger on the phone receiver. No. The receiver is the part you put to your face, right? Or that's the handset. And the receiver is the part that it plugs into. It's an old-fashioned phone, guys. I haven't used one of these in a long time. So I guess that's like one other bit of evidence that maybe Grunkle Stan wants these FBI agents here, that he sort of let the call go through. I feel like he could have managed to stop Dipper before he like got anything out, but he doesn't. Dipper gets to say what he needs to say. And so I'm a little bit, I don't know, suspicious of that now. I just feel like I believe that Grunkle Stan is trying to hide something, but there's a part of me that's like, is there a piece of like equipment that only the FBI has that he's after? I don't know. Anyway, okay, so we'll get there. So we have the karaoke posters that are up behind Wendy and Dipper. She explains to him where she thinks Stan hides all of his stuff. They go and do that. Meanwhile, at the main part of the party, everybody is arriving. And it's just, I really enjoy these like town-wide events because we get to see everybody arriving and all of their like character reactions to the party and what's going on. So all of Wendy's friends show up, and Thompson is like the guy who he's fat and he's like desperate for approval, as he puts it. And he shows up and it's like, oh man, I thought this was going to be a rave. And they're like, well, take your shirt off and make it a rave. And he does. And what's her name takes his photo and sends it to, it says all on her thing, send all. And a few minutes later, the eyelash dude with the mustache is walking by and he says, Tambry sends me the craziest texts. Tambry. What a name. Guys, is that a name? Is Tambry real? Melanie says, so unlike season 1, episode 1, this time it really is zombies. Yeah, true. We went back to it for the first episode of the new season. And Wendy's dad arrives and he's got a barrel full of meat. And what's her face shows up? Is it Donna? And she's got her like a whole diner apron on and she's carrying a pie, one eye, one pie. So at this point, Dipper is, oh my God, guys, I almost forgot. Speaking of like the town's reaction to the party, fucking Mabel walking by everybody dancing. This is the best thing in the world. She first walks by local kook. She says something, Gorney, you clean up nice. Correct me if I'm wrong, Melanie. Is Gorney the kid that got eaten by the candy monster? I think it's the same kid, right? Okay. Gorney really, really reminds me of my cat, Ripley. He's very short, very fat, very enthusiastic to a point that you're kind of like, hey, buddy, maybe you want to calm down. And his eyes are so round. He is so round, and his eyes are so round. There is just something about him that really feels like Ripley. I wish to God some of you could see pictures of my cat. She just has this permanently overexcited, surprised, panicked look on her face. The only time that I see her calm down from that is when she's half asleep. And she will snap from half asleep to panicked in a heartbeat. It could just be the sound of the refrigerator door closing. And all of a sudden, she like tenses. I don't know what her deal is. But yeah, Gorney just reminds me of her so much for some reason. Mr. Poolcheck, move those crazy legs. You weird pool man. I love that. So she finally comes up to the police, and because they're standing there having come to deal with a complaint. And I love this. Did you catch my face going 90 miles an hour? We've got complaints about the loudest party in town. And one of them says 3 words, we want in. And she very seriously puts a couple of, what are they called in their mouths? When the thing that you blow on and it goes burp and unfurls. And she says, welcome to your dreams, with this face. And one of my favorite moments of the whole episode. I love it. She's so sincere. They're so sincere. It's just so good. God, guys, I can't believe I don't remember what those are. What they're called. what a weird place in my life that things that used to be so important that I absolutely knew about, I don't know anymore. Meanwhile, the agents show up and Dipper is trying to talk to them about it. They are looking through the journal and they come across the leprechaun, which is apparently a combination leprechaun unicorn. And it's obviously so ridiculous. Later on, we see that there is a bunch of invisible ink that says stuff like hogwash, nonsense, like that these things aren't actually real. I don't know if they were only put in the journal to lead people astray, or if it was meant to be like, oh, I'm going to put some ridiculous stuff in here to discredit the book as a whole so that people don't pay attention to the important parts because they assume it's all nonsense, or if the author found the book partially completed and it was full of like bullshit somebody just dreamed up, and then they continued and made it something that was mostly serious and just left the parts in because that was easier. It could be any number of things. But yeah, they don't believe it because of these silly creatures in there. And they're about to walk away and Dipper says, wait, the book is real. Gnomes, cursed objects, spells. Listen. Corpus levitas, Diablo Dominus, Mondo Vicium. Okay, so that's bodies rise. Devil rules, right? I think. And something Mondo Vicium, the world's... I don't know what Vicium is. Let's see. Let's find out what Vicium is. I'm looking it up. Thanks for nothing. Zombie curse translation. World change. Okay, that like popped up thanks to Gravity Falls Wiki on the Google page, but that's as far as I'll read. World change. Melanie says, I just looked it up. Apparently they are called blowouts. I never knew this. Oh, the party things? That's not it. Come on. I know the word from like childhood and it was not blowouts. I would remember that. I feel like kazoo, but something like kazoo. What are they? Okay. Blow into unfurl party horn. See what I got. What do you call those party horns? Festive blowouts with fringe. God, they say it is like party horns, blowers. I guess. Man, I really thought that they would sound like had a more interesting name. All right. Sorry, guys. I'm getting so distracted. So after Dipper, like, this is really the kind of moment that is sort of, I think, dealt with best in Cabin in the Woods, for those of you who have seen that. I'm drawing a line in the fucking sand here. Don't read the fucking Latin. And yeah, he just does it without any thought for what this could do and the danger that it could pose. The ground begins to shake, a huge crack appears with green light coming out of it, and a zombie pulls itself up over the edge of the crack and is really gross. Like this is a body that has long decayed. And he sees the zombie and is really excited because he's like, oh, see, this is evidence of what I'm talking about. I proved it. I achieved precisely what I needed to. Ta-da, I'm done. They managed to kill the thing. And he's very like, oh, see, I'm done. No harm done. Dude, did you really think it was going to end there? A bunch of other cracks begin to open up. And so many more zombies come out. And he's sort of looking to these two agents like they're going to be able to like solve this problem for him, which is just so precious because it goes to show how like much Dipper trusts grown-ups to like handle shit. And I really appreciate Powers just being like, look, we have dealt with a lot of stuff, but we have never seen anything like this before. We don't know what to do, you know? And I just really like Agent Powers, to be honest, because he's a combination of like deeply sensible and also ridiculous, but very like straightforward and honest. They all get tackled and dragged away, and I definitely thought the agents were dead. Like 100% thought these agents were dead. So when they wind up popping up later, I was very happy and relieved, because frankly, any character that Nick Offerman voices, I want that character to be around a while. I'm reminded of The Mummy. You must not read from the book. You know, like, basic shit here, everybody. If you don't know what something says, and I mean, anything that says like Diabolus, I mean, don't do it. Okay. So we go back to the party. Everybody's dancing. What's up, fools? It's Blubs and Derbs making all that money and getting them girls. Oh my God, bless them. Everybody's dancing, having a good time. It seems like the party's going really, really well. And then it begins to shake and everybody begins to panic. Understandably. Now, guys, I would like to take an aside here and just say Mabel's determination that this party be a certain way, and her, like, hosting skills, how much she makes sure everybody's having fun and is constantly like trying to hype the crowd up. Woman after my own heart. I love her so much. I like everything about the way that she handles a party like this is exactly the kind of shit that I would do. She even has a boombox sweatshirt that you can push on it and it begins to play music. If I were hosting a party like this and I found a boombox sweatshirt that you could push on and it would play music, do you think for a single moment that I would not buy that shirt? Now, I don't wear sweatshirts, so I would cut the sleeves off and cut the back open and turn it into like a corset back and make it like really tight. So it would be different, but the spirit of the thing remains the same. I just feel in my bones everything that Mabel is trying to do this episode, and her like deep desire to have her whole family do this like song together. I get it, girl. I get it so hard. So hard. I love it so much. So yeah, her disappointment that the party gets broken up before they even get to sing their song is palpable, and I totally understand it. And she's put a ton of work into this, you know, like what a bummer. So everybody fucking sprints away, and then comes Dipper around the corner being chased by zombies. To which she says, "What is the one thing that I asked you not to do tonight?" Raise the dead. And what did you do? Raise the dead. You're right to give him a hard time about this. So they get cornered, and Seuss pulls his phone out and takes a photo and is like, "Well, you got to admit, this is pretty cool." And then tries to say that he's going to be their surest chance of surviving this because he's watched so many horror movies that he totally knows how to defend himself against zombies. The thing about zombies is that unless they get to critical mass, I don't find them scary. So once we get to the point where they're like gathered around the house and there really is a ton of them, then I start to be very concerned. But initially, like, this is always how I feel on zombie TV shows. It can be hard for me to like feel the threat of one or two. It has to be a huge crowd. And there comes a point where doing that over and over even gets boring. There's only so much to be wrung out of the mummy or the zombie metaphor. But anyway, so he's busy talking about how he's going to be fine and he'll have their backs. And one of them bites him on the shoulder and immediately turns him into a zombie. And what's great about Zombie Seuss is that he really doesn't change at all. His appearance changes, and he wants to eat their brains, but his overall personality is still there. And he's like, so, dudes, quick question. Can I eat your brains? Yay? Nay? Seeing a few yay faces out there. This is beautiful, and I love how this just continues on in this fashion throughout the episode. Like they're trying to get through the window at one point, and he's talking about how he taught them how to hit the power box. I think he says he cut the fuses or something. It's just moments like this that go on and on. Even at the very end, at one point, Mabel is trying to lead him away, and he kind of goes at her, trying to get her brain again, and she has to be like, Seuss, stop it. And he just goes, sorry, dude. He's still there. It's still Seuss, but he just, and I would like to point out that Dipper at this point uses the shovel to try and defend himself by hitting one of the party light balls at them. And I don't know how many of you know what I'm talking about, but it's one of those black plastic globes that has circles of different colored plastic all over it, and light shines out from inside and sends that light all over and makes it into a very party-like atmosphere. And I am 1000% here for that. I love what they I was already laughing. If you watch the video of me watching this, I was already laughing at the fact that they were fighting zombies amongst this party setup. But then when he hits that light towards them, it goes into one of the zombies' mouths and begins shining out through its rib cage. And Seuss says something like, I'm telling you guys, you may as well stop fighting back. Everything you're trying to do makes us look more rad. Perfection. It doesn't get better than that for me. This is so perfect. I love it so much. I'm so happy that these light balls that got my attention in the first place for being wonderful turned into a thing and a joke. It was just so good. It made me so happy. I'm running out of time, and I haven't even started the second episode, so I'm going to hurry up. But I do need to talk about Grunkle Stan is bae. I'll say this right now, guys. I never expected to say this. But it appears that all I need to find a dude attractive is a full head of hair, and him to be willing to get in fist fights with the undead. Evidently. Because Grunkle Stan is old. He's supposed to be 65, I think? And he's out here with a baseball bat and then with brass knuckles fighting these fucking things like a boss. And he looks great, like a badass. He's got shoulders 2 feet across. 2 feet. 4 feet across. I don't know how I never noticed that Grunkle Stan is bae before, but I'm screenshotting this. I'm going to post this in the group. He is, and he could get it. I'm just saying. So, good on you, Grunks. I'm proud of you. And he winds up being able to fight them back and keep his kids safe. And at one point, Dipper's like, so, I guess you can't deny now that there's magic. And he finally is like, dude, Dipper, I'm not a fucking moron, dude. Yeah, I knew this shit was happening. But you guys are children, and I was trying to protect you, because that's literally my whole job. They sent you to live with me because I'm an adult who is meant to watch over you and make sure that you're okay. So they wind up finding out via the black light that's still on in this room. They're looking through the journal, and they notice the messages that are in invisible ink. And it turns out that the zombie heads will explode if they sing a perfect 3-part harmony. Guys, when I was watching this and we came to that part, I just wanted to like give it a standing ovation. Whoever came up with this. So they wind up going out onto the roof with the karaoke machine and they're singing a song. Now, I don't know if this song is supposed to be based on any song in particular. I feel like Ampersandra is, I can't believe I didn't mention that joke, by the way. Ampersandra is, in my opinion, one of the better jokes of ever. Like, I had to pause while I was watching to just let that sink in for a moment because it is so good a joke. But I think Ampersandra is meant to be like Kesha, but this song is much less like upsetting than a lot of Kesha songs are. Friday night and we're going to party till dawn. Don't worry, daddy. I've got my favorite dress on. Roll into the party. The boys are looking our way. We just keep dancing. And we don't care what they say. Something like that. It is a really goofy, but honestly great song that I would not mind being on a playlist. And as the zombies begin to climb the side of the house, they realize that it's time to get into the harmony. Boys are a bore. Let's show them the door. We're taking over the dance floor. Ooh. And it begins. They begin to sing their 3-part harmony. And all of the zombies in the vicinity that can hear them, their heads just pop. Like, just explode from the inside like grapes. It's a bizarre sight for sure. One of them actually is like, has his hands over his ears and yanks his own ears off. But yeah, we see all of them finally collapse. And there's one last one that comes at Dipper. And Mabel hits it with a confetti cannon and sends its head flying into the punch bowl. So yeah, fantastic ending. I love it. So then we have Grunkle Stan and Dipper talking about the journal. He says that he'll give it back as long as Dipper uses it only for self-defense and not to go looking for trouble. And Dipper says, as long as you promise me you don't have any other bombshell secrets about this town. They both cross their fingers behind their back as they promise this. So they're both full of shit. And then we, take a look at the zombie damage. Seuss comes in. We have to cope with him. And I don't know how they fix whatever's going on. There's a page of here about dezombification, and it's going to take a lot of formaldehyde. I really want to know what that means, what they do. But evidently they managed to fix him. And then we have the scene at the very end with after the credits, with Agent Power and Agent Trigger and them having survived, and they run into Sad Man and think that he's a zombie until they just realize that he's just a very ugly man. So that is the end of that episode. I'm sorry that I took so much time talking about that one and left only 15 minutes to talk about the next one, but them's the breaks. So the next episode, I'm going to, rather than just go beat by beat with the actual plot, since I don't have a ton of time, I want to talk on the outset about exactly what's going on here with Wendy and Dipper, because I really liked the way that the show decided to handle this. What they did was they had Dipper finally tell Wendy the truth about how he feels about her and kind of get that off his chest, so it's not something that's festering, I guess. And they have her be real with him about it and be like, look, dude, I appreciate that, but you know you're way too young for me, right? Come on. What are you... we have a lot of fun together. I really, really like you. And I really want to be friends. I think that you're great. Come on. That's not going to happen. You have to know that, right? And he deals with it pretty well. He kind of like does the sort of, yeah, I know sort of thing. And he says something to her about how Mabel had said he would feel better if he shared how he felt. And she asks him how he feels then. Like, well, do you? And he says that he feels anxious and scared and a little itchy. I really liked that itchy because that feels super true to me. And yeah, just overall, I thought that having him finally say it, because like, let's be honest, when there is a one-sided crush in a thing, it's only really cute and fun if it feels like there is something, that there is like a real playfulness to it that's sort of distancing it from being a reality. And if it goes on for too long, it just starts to become kind of like creepy and pathetic. I feel like in a cartoon, you can get away with it for a lot longer than you can on a, live action show. One of the only shows I've ever seen that managed to pull off an ongoing continuous crush for years and years and managed to make it funny the whole time was Frasier with Niles and Daphne. But then they wound up sort of caving on that. I like the fact that her age is not a thing that can be changed. This isn't something that like, she's just got a boy in the way and he just needs to sideline him. They tried that at first. It was funny. Robbie's real annoying. He sends her a winky frown. I don't know what that is, but it ain't good, I'm sure. But overall, I just really thought that having him finally tell her the truth, and for her to be like, I kind of knew, it's not like you're real quiet when you mumble things under your breath all the time, I thought was a smart way to finally like deal with it and continue for them to be friends. I like the show giving boys an example of a girl rejecting them and that boy not feeling like this is, what's the word? Like this is going to make a fool of me, or that it's like wrong of her to have rejected me and she just doesn't see how great I am. They just did it so that being like staying friends was a compliment. Her saying, I think that you are a great person and I have a lot of fun with you. I do want to be friends. It's not that, oh, we should just be friends. When you say just be friends in these contexts, there's just that baggage with the friend zoning thing, which is not real, that makes it sound like this is like second best. Like there was another better version of this relationship that we could have had, but you're not going to get it. And I really like that in the way that she like responds to him makes it seem like us being friends is still great. It's still super fun. I want that to, it's not me like keeping you at arm's length because I'm just trying to sort of humor you. It's I actively want to be friends with you. And I really hope that you are okay with that continuing, because I would be very sad to lose that. So that was a really nice way of dealing with it. So this episode deals with them going down into this weird bunker that they find underneath a tree in the woods. And they figure this out because of the invisible ink showing this like stairway that goes down after you pull a lever. That's one of the branches. I really love how much Wendy is showcased in this episode as being particularly badass. She's the one who like climbs the tree using her belt, a trick that she learned when she was doing like the lumberjack camps that her dad made her go to. She's the one that like fights with the creature a little bit later on. She gets injured and like tears her own shirt up and like bandages her wound. She just keeps on being really smart and tough and rolling with things, is getting along very well with Seuss as well. And, you know, there had been a bit of a thing when we first met these characters that Seuss is such a hard worker and so sincere about things, and that she is such a slacker, that I was kind of like, oh, are we just going to have these two kind of not get along? But I like that when we're on an adventure, that can all be set aside. So they finally, like, there's a bunch of sort of small rooms that they, like, come across on the way to finding a, oh my God, how did I not even notice this? There are all of these boxes that are labeled with like 20 something, and I'm assuming that those are years, but I don't think I even noticed the first time around because I was so fixated on everything else that's happening in this scene. But it looks like there's a bunch of stuff from the future that's being like kept in little filing boxes. So they finally, like, it's Wendy actually who pulls aside this poster that's covering up a tunnel into a whole other section of this bunker. The room that they step into is really, really creepy. It's a bunch of like metal tiles, and when Dipper steps on one, the door slams shut behind them, and all of the tiles like that have symbols on them light up bright red. I kind of expected them to say something about the heat because I thought that for sure this was going to get really hot. But no, it is just like blocks coming out of the wall at them in a weird way. I have no idea what this is supposed to have done. I do really like Wendy's line of, was this place built in the past or the future? Because there is an overlap here in the style of everything. But yeah, they find this one symbol. They push all of the symbols that correspond to it as the blocks come up. And this causes the one door to open. And they manage to get out of there just before the blocks like completely smash them to bits. It is a really close call. I do not understand having that kind of entryway set up, but maybe there's a reason for it. And they eventually first of all, Mabel finds a note that Dipper dropped confessing his love for Wendy. And she decides that she is going to make him tell Wendy the truth, even though he already is saying that he doesn't want to do that because he can see that Wendy has a lot of contempt now for Robbie and how desperate he is and how he's constantly trying to get her attention. And Dipper is understandably afraid that if he tells her how he feels, she is going to kind of start to see him that way. And I say understandable because it could be something, a trap that he fell into if he decided to push things with her and not take no for an answer. But it appears that he is trying to be cool with them being friends instead of anything romantic. And I think that's the key. You don't turn into this guy if you just accept her saying that she's not really that interested and treat her like a fucking person. But Robbie doesn't do that. He just keeps on trying to like make something happen, even though he acts like, oh, I want you back so bad. But it's not like he paid that much attention to her or was that good to her when she was around. So, and also don't forget that he tried to hypnotize her into falling in love with him. So Mabel shoves Dipper into the closet, this metal closet that Wendy found, and shuts the door. And this leads to them trying to find another way out and being like put into a decontamination shower before another doorway opens into what's definitely a creepy lab full of tanks, which could only be used to like create creatures. And this is revealed pretty shortly. There is this creature that seems to, like, we seem to see its silhouette in the light, like on the side of the cave, and then this guy seems to fight it, and then he comes forward and tells them like, oh, I ripped out the monster's tongue, but it'll regenerate, it'll be back, please help me to take it down. I don't know how the shapeshifter managed to make it look like there were two creatures there. I assume that it can do that unless there's more than one shapeshifter down there. I don't know. But I will take it on faith that this is something that can happen. And eventually they find, like, they overhear, because there's like speakers. And I'm trying to find exactly where this is. So we have Seuss and Mabel, and they are in a different part of the lab, and they can turn on the cameras and stuff and see other areas. So she is looking at this one room, and there are the tanks, and one of them, there's like a note under it that says experiment number 210, the shapeshifter became too dangerous, placed in cryogenic stasis. And they read this, and she's like, oh, shit. They did say something about a monster. I thought that was just Dipper trying to get out of that room and stop talking to Wendy, but apparently not. Meanwhile, Dipper and Wendy are walking with this dude that Dipper thinks is the author, and he's like so excited about it. And Wendy picks up a can of beans from the ground, and there is a label on it with a dude that looks exactly like this. I'm not sure exactly how they figured out that, like, this thing had to be a shapeshifter. Like, that's a good enough, but, like, it's still kind of, I don't know what I would think, you know, like, they know something's wrong, and that's really all they need to know because they've been worried about a monster. But it's just such a wacky thing to be able to be like, oh, this dude looks exactly like this person on the label of this can. Obviously, it, what, is a shapeshifter? Like, I guess that when you're dealing with tons of supernatural shit, that's just all you, that's the only explanation, right? I should mention too, it's Baron Num Num's High Flying Beans, and it's just like this dude with these goggles and a dog with a hot air balloon behind him on the label. What a weird bean label. So yeah, this thing catches on to the fact that Dipper has figured out what it is, and it begins to do this, like, it turns into The Thing a little bit, which is something that I was commissioned to watch around Halloween time last year, where its like neck grows really long and its head like turns the wrong way, and he climbs up the wall and then sprouts 8 spider legs, and the whole thing is deeply upsetting. So upsetting, y'all. And he tells Dipper over the course of the episode that he knows where the author actually is, but that Dipper is never going to find him, and that if he keeps pushing it, he is going to like die a terrible death. And it's honestly like really, really creepy to think that this thing like is aware of where the author is, and that it's like the author is imprisoned somewhere or God knows what, you know? It's just like, and the way it shifts into different creatures. At one point it shifts into, it's like, should I be Mabel or should I be Dipper? Or should I be a little of both? And it shifts into this horrifying, stretched out version of both of them. It's the worst. The actual worst. I hated it. Oh my God. So the reason that Wendy finds out how Dipper feels is because it transforms into Wendy and is on the ground, passed out as if it's injured, and Dipper thinks that it's Wendy, like maybe dead, and it's just like, I can't believe this happened, and I never even told you how I felt about you. I'm in love with you. And then all of a sudden Wendy is behind him, and she's just like, dude, what are you doing? So this leads to the fight between 2 identical Wendys that he has to figure out which one is which. And I didn't get it the first time around that like she had like closed her fingers like a zipper motion and thrown away the key before they went down into the bunker. But that is how he figures out which one is which, because one of them turns and just winks at him, and that's nothing. But the other turns and does that like zipper thing, and he's just like, oh shit. And they back the shapeshifter into the cryogenic chamber and manage to freeze it. And they finally get out of there. and Dipper has the talk with Wendy. And then at the end of it, she's like, and by the way, we're doing movie night at your place next time. So I really liked that. And at the end, Seuss, who had picked up like the lab coat and the briefcase in an attempt to look smart, they find out that that briefcase is actually a laptop. So he managed to bring something back with him from that place that could potentially be very, very valuable. So good on you, Seuss. Appreciate you. Melanie says 30 years is mentioned several times in both of these episodes. Any idea of what may have happened? Haven't seen readings like this in 30 years. The author vanished 30 years ago. That six-fingered nerd hasn't been himself in 30 years. I don't know what could have happened 30 years ago. Like, I'm trying to think about anything that we saw in the because there was a Gravity Falls like sort of history festival that they had in the last season, and I'm wondering if anything was said there about 30 years. But yeah, I don't know, Melanie. I haven't got any theories on that. But yeah, I'm really enjoying the like weird unfurling of these mysteries, and I also finally noticed that there was like a mixed up letters code underneath the ending credits that I hadn't noticed before, and apparently that's like been at the end of every episode, but somehow I never caught it. So the ending credits, by the way, is them looking at all of these different advertisements for like bargain basement movies. And when I was watching this the first time, was like, oh my God, Owen is going to fucking love this. And sure enough, when we watched this last night, he fell out laughing. He was like, the planet people from Planet. He died over that. Oh, he loved it. Did you notice the label on the inside of the laptop said property of F? Yes, I did. And I've been trying to think of anybody that I know of who has that, like a name that starts with F. And I don't feel like I know the names of these characters well enough to be able to like put anything together there. I probably should get like an IMDb list. I want a safe IMDb list though, that I don't need to worry about of everybody that we've seen on the show so far. But yeah, I'm over time, so I'm going to have to wrap this up. But thank you very much to Melanie for commissioning this. This has been super fun to watch. And I'm really looking forward to watching the next one. So, guys, I hope you hang out with me again. All right. I'll see you soon with a new one. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.